welcome back to my booktube channel, and today I have a very special review for you. Today we are going to be taking a look at Cha-ching! Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson, book 1 in the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. So I'm going to preface this review by discussing the fact that while there are a lot of reviews for this book and the Malazan Book of the Fallen series in general, I'm going to try and add my own perspective to it, which is really all a booktuber can do, and I will do my best to do that here because this book genuinely surprised me. Now, what is this book about exactly? That's sort of a hard thing to precisely define, as the plot is rather complex and it is hard to precisely and accurately define just one overarching storyline. So I will sort of break it down in a more vague, general term for you. So Empress Lacine of the Malazan Empire is very, very interested, to say the least, in taking the city of Darujistan, which is the last of the free cities on the continent of Genebacus. So she has a lot of her forces moving to Darujistan to sort of take over the city and conquer it for her own. And this is sort of a very interesting statement on the dangerous nature of imperialism and how it can very, very negatively influence and affect the people that are being conquered who really have not done anything wrong. And I think that that's just one of the many very interesting meditations on power and, like I said before, imperialism in this book. We follow a very large cast of characters in this book. At the beginning of the book, there's about like 4 pages of dramatis personae, a list of characters that are important but are also side characters in the plot, and they sort of explain what exactly these people are doing and who they are. So that was very helpful to look at sometimes, because every now and then I would sort of forget a name and sort of forget where this person was or who they were, just because of how many names and places and characters you're trying to keep track of. But I don't think that that in any way detracts from the quality of this book, and I think that anyone who tells you that it does is leading you in the wrong direction, because this book can be enjoyable if you are in the right mindset. I don't think that this is a book that you can just sit down on the beach and enjoy. It's not really that simple. I think that you need to be focused. This is a book that requires work and focus, and that is exactly what I expected going in. So it was a bit easier for me to enjoy this book because I knew not necessarily what to expect, but I knew how to go about reading this book. And I think that to be able to really get the most full enjoyment that you can out of this book is to go in with the expectation that you're not going to remember everything. You're not going to know what's going on all the time. And that's okay. That's really not a problem. I say this as a person who just finished this book yesterday, but the thing is, I truly, truly believe that this book is a very, very, very original and classic example of what epic fantasy can, and depending on who you are and how you feel, should be. While this book, from what I understand, probably has the most conventional plot structure of the whole series, it did remind me in a lot of ways in terms of structure and prose and sort of the way characters were written. It reminded me a lot of Frank Herbert's Dune, which is a novel that I personally love very much, and I have heard that Dune influenced Mr. Erikson quite a bit. I could be wrong on that, but that is what I have heard personally. So I could see those sort of connections, and I felt that that made the experience more enjoyable for me, was to connect it to something that I personally enjoyed and something that I had read in the past and really gotten a lot from. Because while this book isn't perfect, there is so much to be found here. So many interesting topics and themes, messages that surely will be explored in further books in a much deeper context. I have been told by many people who have read the series, reread the series, that this is probably the worst book. Worst is a bit of a relative term in my opinion. I think that when it comes to this series and large epic fantasy series such as this, that the term worst doesn't really apply to the fact that it's bad per se, but that it is the weakest in terms of prose and character work and structure compared to the rest of the series. But out of everything that I've read in the fantasy genre, honestly, this book was probably the most original piece of work that I have read, except from maybe Senlin Ascends, which is definitely one of my favorite reads of the year so far. I understand that, we're halfway through January, but I loved Senlin Ascends, and I love originality in fantasy because I feel like it is so easy to get bogged down in being derivative and finding books that are trying to be something else. But this book is wholly original in my opinion. I think that while it does share some connections to classics such as Dune and The Black Company, I do think that this book is very, very largely original in terms of the concepts, the magic system, which isn't even fully explained, but is so vast and complex in a lot of ways. It's not a hard magic system. It's a soft magic system that has a bit of rules and has different ways of working, and I found that so interesting. But it was also very open to interpretation, and I found that very intriguing because I haven't really read too many soft magic systems. As I read the Stormlight Archive and other series that have hard magic systems, this was very refreshing to get that soft magic system feel while also having some boundaries, some rules to it, and that's just one of the many things that I really enjoyed about this book. Another thing that I really found myself enjoying were the characters. There are a large variety of characters to be found here, from Adjunct Lorne to Sergeant Whiskey Jack to Ganos Perrin. There are so many different characters with so many different motivations, and all of these moving pieces, of which there are very many, sort of work together to form a very interesting plot structurally. And I think that while it may be easy to determine this book as a plot-driven one, I think that this was theme-driven. And I've seen other people say that, and I completely agree. I didn't really know that was a thing until I read this book. I have read many character-driven books, recently Assassin's Apprentice, for example, and Mort by Terry Pratchett, and I've read more plot-driven books like Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames, and I think that this book was completely separate from those two categories, as many of the things that were driving this plot and driving the story and the characters, I think that that was sort of based on theme and the very different themes that are explored, or at least at the very minimum introduced to be explored later in this book. I truly believe that this book has it all, and I think that this series surely must have even more of that, which is absolutely astounding to me. I've never read the first book of a fantasy series and felt that there was so much potential, so much that was promising, that really signaled that this is not your average fantasy series. This is not your papa's average fantasy series. This is Malazan, and this is definitely, from what I've read, the largest fantasy world, and it is a very ambitious one. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. I think that ultimately, like I said before, as it is very ambitious and it is very large scale, full of just so many continents and cities and just so many things like that, I think that you really have to want to dive deep, because if you are not very interested in trying to dive deep, I think that this book will not be a very enjoyable experience for you. You might be able to look at things like Anamander Rake fighting the Malazans, and you're like,
Oh my god, that's so cool. Did he just shoot some magic at them?
and of course you can enjoy things like that, and you can be like,
Wow! Talking zombies?
I mean, there are things that the average fantasy reader can enjoy. I think that in no way is this series average, but I do not think at all that it is above anyone. I think that anyone can enjoy this book. I've known a lot of people who have DNF'd it, who've tried to come back to it after a long period of time and try and reread it. But the thing is, I think that this, like I said before, this is a book that you need to be in a certain mindset for. I think that this is a series that you need to prepare yourself for. I think that you shouldn't over prepare yourself, though. I feel like maybe I over prepared myself a little bit, and that it felt a little bit more comprehensible. Not totally. I missed so many things in this book, I'm sure, because I reread a large portion of this book, and I know that I just finished it very, very recently, but I found myself rereading, very compelled to reread a lot of this book, and I just realized how many things I missed on this first read. Because let me be honest with you, the first 200, like if you're reading the mass market, that is, the first 200 pages of this book are rough. You're absolutely just thrown into this huge world in just every sense of the word, huge. And you are just thrown right in the middle of it, and you have to follow along or you will be left in the dust. And I don't think that that is something that you should be afraid of. I think that if that makes it feel like work to you, if that really sort of hampers your enjoyment of the book, then I don't think that this is going to be for you. Because make no mistake, this is not for everyone, but I do think that everyone can find something to enjoy in this book. Whether it's the huge battles, whether it's the epic themes that are explored, or whether it's just the great characters that are introduced. This book is not for everyone. The series seemingly is not for everyone. I wouldn't know because I haven't read the rest of the series yet. I have started Dead House Gates, though, because that is how much I enjoyed this book. Although it felt a little bit clunky at times in terms of the prose, and the structure did feel a little off every now and then, particularly towards the middle. I did really, 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 really enjoy this book, and it is a very, very promising note for the future. I very, very much look forward to continuing with this series. I have already read about 40, 50 pages of Dead House Gates, and I have no words, because I really do believe that this is going to be my favorite epic fantasy series of all time, if not favorite series out of any genre of all time, because there are so many things in this book that just grabbed me by the collar, and I feel so compelled to dive in fully with these characters and this world. I am going to do my best to binge this series. I am hoping to read at least the first 5 back to back to back to back to back. But I do want to read the entire series this year if I'm not able to binge it very quickly. I'm hoping that I can get most of the books done by my birthday in May. So maybe I'll get there, maybe I won't. But the thing is, I don't really care, because this is about the journey. It's not about the destination. There is truly so much to enjoy here. But like I said before, this is not for everyone. I do believe that everyone can find something to enjoy in this book, no matter how minuscule or how large. I just think that, like Dune, this is a book that you need to be in a proper place for. Do not try to force this book on yourself. Do not try and make yourself feel like you have to read this book, because I will admit, at first I felt like I had to read this book, because
literally everyone I know is reading this book right now.
And I felt like I really needed to read this book. But when I got to the second section of this book, all of that washed away, and I felt like this was the start of something new. This was the start of a very long yet fulfilling journey for me as a reader. And I have to say that I am really looking forward to continuing with this series, finishing Dead House Gates probably in the next couple of days, considering how much I really love to read this series so far. I know what you're thinking. Yes, I am only on the second book. How can I say that I love it? I just do. For everything that I've listed here and more. I think that I actually enjoyed this book more than most people who have read it. That's probably just because I haven't read the rest of the series yet, so I don't know how good it gets. But right now, in this moment, I really enjoyed Gardens of the Moon, and I am so happy that I picked it up because I have never been this excited to continue with the fantasy series. Yes, I love Farseer. Yes, I love Discworld. Yes, I really enjoyed Wheel of Time. Yes, I really enjoyed Witcher. But this,
Malazan.
I have never been so excited to continue a series. I will be rereading Gardens of the Moon, and I hope that if you decide to pick up Gardens of the Moon, that you really enjoy it. And I may do a spoiler talk of this book. Just let me know in the comments below if that'd be something you're interested in, because I have a lot of thoughts about things that have happened, some questions as well. I really hope that you enjoyed this rambling review, because I was just gushing the entire time about this book, and I cannot wait to gush even more over the characters like Animander Rake, who is definitely one of the most badass characters I have ever read, along with Lorne and Whiskey Jack and Tool. I love all of them so much, even Krupp, someone that I didn't think I was going to like at first, but by the end I was like, wow. So anyway, thank you for watching my review of Gardens of the Moon, and look forward to more content to come. I will have some Dresden reviews up soon. I will have my Prince of Thorns, Assassin's Apprentice review up soon, and I will be trying to be more active on the platform. So please follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads. All those links are in the description. And I am thinking about starting a Discord soon. So if you would be interested in joining that, or if you think that that's a good idea, bad idea, please let me know in the comments, and please like, subscribe. And I hope that you will pick up Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. And I hope that you will have a fantastic day.